Good afternoon. It's been pretty comfortable today, and so I'm out rewarding myself for scribbling all day. There are a couple of interesting things going on. One is fresh in my mind because I heard it before I set out to walk. Nauta is the co-defendant with Trump in Florida for basically adding and subtracting boxes of classified documents. Now, one of the problems at a trial involving classified documents is how under a statute, CIPA, C-I-P-A, how you share documents, because a person who's accused of a crime has to have some knowledge of what's going on. Now, in this case, I think they'd be hard-pressed to say Trump didn't know what the documents were, but that's not how we operate. And that conference to figure out how to do that, consistent with, well, I don't know if it's complicated, but a system of how to deal with it, is due on Friday. Now, Nauta has said, well, my counsel can't be there. We have to set another day. The government's position is no, we have it that day. And Stan Woodward is the D.C. counsel who represents Nauta. Now, I was unfamiliar with him, but he has handled a number of associates or people in the Trump orbit. So this is not his first rodeo within the Trump sphere. He also had a period of time at Akin Gump, and he's clerked for several judges before. And if I understand correctly, he's being considered for a judgeship himself in D.C. So he's a younger man, I don't know, 40s or 50s, and he's in practice with a good friend of mine and a fabulous lawyer named Stan Brand. So he is not a light in his loafers lawyer. Now, the local counsel has been attacked because what does she know about this? And I can tell you from having appeared in a number of jurisdictions where I'm not licensed, that local counsel just reassures the court that this out-of-state counsel is here, and I've done enough checking to know that they're reasonable, and then they become the lawyer who appears and argues in the court, not the local lawyer. The local lawyer has been asked to come to court and handle this thing on Friday, and she does not feel comfortable doing that. She doesn't know this kind of law. And Woodward claims to be on trial in D.C. So that's the pitched battle. The question is, what will the judge do? So will the judge let this float in space? And we're talking about Judge Luce Cannon. And so that's probably the best summary or outline I could give you on the next treacherous moment in the prosecution of Mar-a-Lago's monster and his man Friday, who moves boxes around with classified documents, so alleged. So that's that. Now, yesterday I spoke with you about Judge Doughty from Louisiana, and his ruling, which I characterized as treating fictions as fact and his theory of how to handle the case as acceptable law, which is why it's being appealed. But there's a lot of talk about what if this is said to hold, that is, that it is not prevented on appeal, it is accepted on appeal, which would be that you can say anything in the world and it has to be respected as if true when not true, because somebody believes it. This is my old argument about I believe I can fly, so can I? No, you can't. Your delusion does not permit you to treat something which is a fiction as if it's a fact. So what are the ramifications if this becomes the rule? Well, the ramifications are significant. So consider how there was great force on social media not to be duplicating and spreading the lies that were coming out of Russia that were helping Trump's campaign. This is his first one, 2016. And that there was some effort to suppress it, and it didn't entirely work out. What if you treated efforts to silence arguments that were factually untrue in the campaign, whether it be about Russia or the steal the election, or that the documents belong to Trump, a whole bunch of things like that. So the treachery, we're concerned about is the ability to treat information that's not true as true, or to keep hands off, to let it work its menacing nature during this election. And excuse me, I came out and I swallowed a bug. It's going to mess up my vegetarian diet, There's a story about that. Indians coming from India who were vegetarian and going to Great Britain, and then they got sick and were undernourished. And what they decided was the fact that they ate bugs as was the, ability to prevent them from eating bugs in India, gave them the protein they needed, but there were better practices in Great Britain. Okay, back to our main show, whatever that is. Now, what are the kids doing? Well, we know Alito's decision about Roe v. Wade stirred women to even more action than is normally the case. But another thing is happening, and that is that polls are reporting that the young are upset with the court, and they're stirred to organize and to object and to protest. So affirmative action, the loan debt question, and the outrageous hypothetical that some woman would not allow a website to be created or modified for a couple that was gay, which it turns out isn't true. It never happened. So the youth are concerned about it and pushing back. So there's a lot going on and a lot for us to watch and to be careful and to care about. The president is trying to figure out a difficult decision here, what to do about NATO. And some people are saying, in my heart, I want, Max Boot said today, that in my heart, I want us to bring them into NATO, but my head says no. And the argument is, it's okay for us to help Ukraine, pretending that we're independent of their operation. But if we made them part of NATO, then we would, by principles of transitivity, be fighting Russia, because we would be agreeing, I want to say it's Article 5, that if a member of NATO is attacked or involved in warlike engagements, that NATO then has to support them. Well, there's a little bit of fiction here, because we are supporting them. And Biden was taking it on the chin for matching some of the weaponry that Russia's already using, that he said, yeah, go ahead and use it as well. In terms of other little things that I find strange, Kansas has been doing something strange, which is not that different than other jurisdictions. And it has to do with the transgender. They are not allowing license plates to reflect your gender if it's different from what is your physical, medical condition at birth. And they've started doing this in Kansas, and of course there are other states that will follow. It's ironic that the movement among Republican candidates and party leaders and so forth is to speak of freedom and then to deny it. It's like if I say it, you should believe it. I didn't eat that cookie. I didn't deny your rights. There's a term that you hear mostly from the Republicans, which is that we're in a culture war. No. A culture war suggests there's a culture on both sides of that argument. Now, if your culture is to discriminate against blacks, that's not a culture. That's not cultured. That is rank bigotry. Rank bigotry. If you don't want to deal with the bullying that children of gender that are distinct from the choices, well, not the choices, distinct from others in their gender, how do you deal with that? Particularly when they're bullied, particularly when they commit suicide, particularly when they're hurt online. What do we do for people who can't afford health care? Republicans don't care. Is that a culture to not care? And so it goes on and on. And so what I'm saying is two things. One is, when we say culture war, that's a frame that has no existence in logic or language. Because what they're talking about is discrimination and hurting, and that is not culture. Telling kids not to wear masks in school, that's not culture. Culture may be art and music. It may be style. So if your culture is, and your style and your culture is, as I've been saying, paranoid, you have a paranoid style, then you believe that things that are being said aren't true, for one thing. And on top of that, you figure you can tell lies, because any means to what you consider a legitimate end. So we have to start thinking about language more as it coincides to facts, because it's coming full-blown into our court system and our political system and probably our daily conversation. And we can't say that it's about culture. Oh, it's just my culture is different than yours. I hate blacks. I hate Jews. And you like them. We just have different cultural views. No, that's bigotry. We've had monsters throughout history who have said these things. We've had people in America who've said these things. We have had a civil war based on a culture difference in which one group thought slavery was fine and others didn't think it was quite fine. We had abolitionists. The Republican Party in its heyday had a man who literally gave up his life and was assassinated for the principle of treating all equal. That is, making true the promise in our Declaration of Independence. So, there are a couple of stories today moving the agenda along, and the Trump story is what happens on Friday, and what will we find out about these lawyers who are from D.C., who are real lawyers, as opposed to abusing the local counsel and her limitations on the practice that she has. We oversimplify, so we're underprepared. We allow Republicans to set the frame of reference without raising a finger to criticize it and question it. That's a problem. More people, other than you and I, should read 1984, should be aware of the manipulations that can literally destroy a nation and its people. So, that's enough for now, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow as I leave you in my cathedral of trees. Bye-bye.